Հարկերի բարեկամներ, բարի երեկո, հորիզոն հայկական հեռուստակայանին ողջունենք բոլորդ եւ կմաղթենք ձեզի հաճելի աշխատանքային եւ անձնական օրեր եւ շաբաթներ։ Սա մեր հերթական հանդիպումն է հորիզոն ուղիղ եթեր եւ այսօր մենք կխոսենք թեմայի մասին, որ ոչ այնքան յուրահատուկ է, բայց ցեվով յուրահատուկ է, որովհետեւ մեզի հետ կզրուցեն մարդիկ, որոնք թերևս այս թեմային մասին շատ մտածած են, բայց մենք տեղյակ չենք եղած։ Եվ այս բոլորը դիտելով իհարկե համաշխարհային հարթակի վրա, ինչու՞ չէ նաև մարդկային իրավունքներու եթե գուզեք դիտակով։ Ովքեր են մեր այսօրվան զրուցակիցները եւ ինչպես մենք կանդրադառնանք այս թեմային։ Ընդամենը համբերություն պետք է, քանի րոպե կվերադառնանք, կսկսենք, կծանոթանանք, կլսեք։ Եվ այսպես հարկերի բարեկամներ, ցեղասպանությունները եւ մարդկային իրավունքները։ Հավասիկ այս թեմայը, որ կխոսենք մենք այս երեկոյան։ Please join me to welcome our tonight's guests. We have two wonderful ladies who have been working in the field of human rights, working with the youth, and of course, they are integrating genocide and genocide prevention, I guess. We'll learn from them throughout the show tonight. But as I was saying, please join me and let's greet and welcome Ms. Andromeda Edison, who is the California chapter president of YHRI, which stands for Youth for Human Rights International. And of course, with us is someone probably you have seen and you have remembered when she was singing, and she used to sing every April 24th live in this very same studio, Hagit Raviv-Ron, one of the singers in that group, the Freedom Singers. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
Glad to be with you tonight. And I guess I'd start with getting acquainted with the YHRI, Youth for Human Rights International. Feel free to answer, whoever wants to answer. I don't direct the question to anyone.
Sure.
Good evening.
Good
Let's
evening.
move.
Okay, well, so Youth for Human Rights International was started by a lady who grew up in apartheid South Africa, named Dr. Mary Shuttleworth. She grew up there, she moved to the US. She realized that human rights was an issue everywhere and that nobody was really teaching it. And she, as an educator, knew about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights after the World Wars and thought, why aren't we teaching this?
Okay, I think just for the purpose of reminding and making things clear, you're using a technical term here, which is very good, of course, but some people may not remember what apartheid exactly was.
Sure.
And should I say is, maybe we're still experiencing it in some areas of the world. That racial discrimination, segregation in presence, in rights, in everything. And of course, that is a big human rights issue.
Right.
So I didn't know that lady, but I guess she was, should I say a subject? Should I say a victim of that kind of a practice?
She was actually an observer.
An observer.
She is light-skinned, and she observed it and thought it wasn't okay in what she saw. So, and in her mind, it didn't make sense.
She was very human then.
She was very human. She was very human, and her knowledge, she's an educator, she's studied history, she's studied the various atrocities that have happened across humanity over the years, and why do we keep doing the same thing over and over again in her mind. So that's where
because some people think that that's okay.
Right, and we don't teach it, that there's actually something different, you should know about it. So the genocides keep happening, all those things just continue because nobody really sits down and says, there are human rights and you have to treat everybody the same. And we actually have 30 of them. Did you know that? I teach this in schools. I go, okay, so who needs human rights? The most common answer I get, your right to remain silent. Or
your right to bear arms.
I know, like those actually aren't human rights.
That's not. That's the Second Amendment. It's really kind of, I even would say a tragedy.
Yeah.
Because yes, if I was born and raised in a family, in the community, in the school that I attended, and nobody told me that this situation that you're seeing around you is not correct,
Right.
is not human. Just because this person has a darker color or has a different background or
Right.
has a different cultural set of belief, or then you treat them in the way everyone is. Education, that's the key.
Yeah,
So that's where I was
exactly.
trying to get into, education. So now, are we doing that? Are you doing that?
Well, what this program does, Youth for Human Rights International, actually took that document that was written after the World Wars, that the United Nations came together and actually wrote a document, and teaches that to our youth. That's the objective of the organization, is to teach it. We simplified it. We made it a little easier to understand, so it's not, you know, some of the more complicated language, as you cleared up apartheid even just now. So there's bigger words.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So made it simpler, and then we teach it. And we teach it to kids. We teach it from elementary through high school, through college. I mean,
I salute you.
I've taught it. So
I
it's
salute
great.
you.
Yeah.
Let's watch a short video in that
Yeah,
regard.
one
and
of the
We'll
clips.
come back and continue. Tidink.
Can you tell which of these children was not born free? Can you tell which of these children was not born equal? Can you tell which of these children does not deserve to be treated with dignity? We can't either. Human right number one. We are all born free and equal. What are human rights? Find out at youthforhumanrights.org.
I think just seeing those innocent eyes,
Yeah.
those really beautiful smiles, reminds us to be human to humans. We,
Exactly.
the adults.
Yeah.
And strange enough, in the 21st century, there are still people who pretend, I would say, who pretend they don't know about these things.
That is not a thing. That doesn't exist, or some. Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
So tell us please about the perceptions, after all, that you see when you teach. Tell us about the activities that you do to transfer the message to the younger generation.
The program itself has what we call public service announcement, the PSA we just saw. There's one for each of the 30 articles. So we show those to the kids nowadays. Kids learn visually a lot better than
Yeah,
just
of
having
course.
somebody talk to them. So we show them those PSAs. There's a music video. There's a history of human rights video. So we have a lot of tools to use. And then we have what we call the educator kit, which has got ideas on things that you can, practical applications you can do with kids. Everything from a kangaroo court, so they can understand the concept of somebody's put on trial and not given a fair trial. And what does that mean, and things like that.
I see. Wonderful. So what I am understanding now is that you also prepare teachers, regular classroom teachers, to do the job as well. Am I correct? Did I
Yeah.
get the message right?
Yes, you did, because I'm not going to hit every single student here in California myself.
Yeah, of course, that will be a big deal, and you will need a I don't know, university for that, and professors for that, and it's, by the way, I would say it's equally enough. Like they learn science, they learn mathematics, they learn languages, and they have to learn how to be human. And I'm not saying they don't know it. I'm not saying that schools don't do that. I'm not saying that families don't do that. But sometimes we feel that we feel that necessity to
Right.
maybe remind, as I was saying, remind ourselves to be human, the ones we are, and to be human with humans who are like us. And that's the whole thing. Now, do we see or do people see in general, yes, human rights are human rights, but when we're talking about genocides, when we're talking about atrocities you mentioned, and we're witnessing them kind of almost every day, in different places in around the world, is that also part of the human rights? Is that also part of knowing or understanding what does it mean to be human, two humans? Would you please think about this? Would you please elaborate this? Okay.
I can, but yeah. I mean, the idea that in some ways what I tell teachers are, we don't want to chase the next discrimination. There's this concept of we keep expanding and we keep making these groups and then we specialize them. And the point is it's all discrimination.
I think you have a lot to tell in this regard, and that's why...
I have a lot to say, I could, yes.
Well, yes, and that's why we'll be doing it when we come back from our break.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Մնացեք մեզ հետ. Back to our tonight's show, ladies and gentlemen, and we have the pleasure actually of having Miss Andromeda Edison, the president of the California chapter of Youth for Human Rights International, along with Miss Hagit Raviv-Ron, who is a singer in the Freedom Singers. And the Freedom Singers themselves, actually, they have called themselves the Freedom Singers, I guess, because they want to spread the word. And we're talking about human rights. Is that correct? Now, human rights, there are 30 of them in the United Nations Declaration, and each one of them is a right. However, at one point, some so-called humans take not only all the rights altogether, but also the right to live from huge number of people, or from ethnic group, or from a genus, and it turns into a genocide.
Right.
Raviv-Ron, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you are a daughter of a Holocaust survivor.
Correct.
Do you believe that the Holocaust may be prevented if the Armenian genocide, which happened about 25 years before the Holocaust, could have been prevented if the perpetrators of the Armenian genocide were held accountable?
Well, I think that if they knew their human rights, they would not be doing what they were doing. So everyone is responsible for their own actions, you know. Whether the Holocaust would be prevented, that I don't know. But if the human rights were being taught from that point on, that could have helped, I think.
Okay, and it's surprising, isn't it, that almost in the middle of the 20th century, humanity had to think about the human rights. Why did not anyone else think about the human rights before that? It didn't take a UN declaration. It didn't take, I don't know, a genius. It's just a simple thing. It's a natural thing. It's a normal thing to respect one another, to give the same. If I have certain rights, then you have those certain rights as well. And respecting your rights and your freedom, like I want my freedom to be respected and my rights to be given to me or respected.
Yeah.
So it's kind of painful to realize that almost in the middle of the 20th century, someone said, okay, you know what, we have to talk about the human rights. Like now Hagit is saying, if the human rights were taught, I don't even believe that they would have, or people before that needed to be taught, because it's a natural thing.
Right.
However, we ended up having this idea that we need to teach, as you are doing now. Now, are you also, as I said earlier, are you also including genocides in general as human rights violations?
Yes. I mean, it is talked about. It's mentioned in the curriculum comes up when I teach it, I end up discussing things and issues with the students, and they'll bring it up and realize, oh, this is a human rights issue. And as you said, I mean, it has been being taught there. I mean, the Cyrus cylinder back in Greece, talked about it. It's not like this is a new thing that's never been talked about before.
Exactly.
But then you get somebody who wants power, wants money, and decides that I'm going to cut off all my people from it and then just indoctrinate them into one thing and get them to push it. So you have the balance of somebody who decides, I want lots of power, I want lots of money. And if I convince my people, whoever they are, this happens throughout history, that human rights don't exist and that we are better than everybody else, then it'll be okay and they'll go and do this genocide. They'll go and do this because I've convinced them. So if we've educated them that there are human rights, so even if some big guy who wants money comes and tells you there aren't, you go, no. They can respond back. So that's why I think in regard to, after the Armenian genocide, if it had been recognized, we had said yes, and let's go teach that this is what happens if you don't make sure that everybody knows the human rights, not just the victims, the perpetrators who think they're doing good in some cases because they're being misled by some bigger guy. They don't realize that they're violating human rights. So
you mean the immediate perpetrators?
Yeah, the ones actually on the street doing because the big bad guy who's making the money isn't doing it. He's just pushing it. But if you had taught the soldiers and the this and the that, maybe we could have had something a little different.
And sometimes the big guy is pretty far geographically from the field, from the theater of the event.
Yeah.
And they're just guiding it because of their explanation, because of their point of view, which they realize that it's against human rights, but they still do it. Because I don't believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, please. I don't believe that there is a normal person, and usually when you have people in power, you assume that they are normal persons, right? I don't believe that there's a normal person who wouldn't know that what am I doing? This is against the humanity. This is not human. This is not the way to treat humans. But yet they do it. And I don't believe that they don't know what they are doing is against the human rights.
Yeah.
They have a plan. They have a reason. They have a purpose. They have whatever they have in mind. So as you said, they make people do what they want, and by convincing. And actually convincing is another way, or maybe one part of education.
Yes.
Totally.
So now we have to convince them the other way around.
Right.
Let's watch the video, please, and then I guess we'll be back and we'll continue.
Sounds great.
Joe. Steven. Eric, over here. I'll take him right there. All right, thank you. Thank you. Right here.
And yes, don't discriminate.
Right.
I think one of the major evils in that process, discrimination. Discrimination based on whatever. I might have a different system of belief. I might have a different color. I might have a different religion. I might have a different point of view.
Right.
That doesn't mean I am right, you're wrong, or I am better and you're worse. I am the good, you're the bad. We're the same, but we're different at the same time. If I have a point of view and you have a different point of view, or I have a darker skin, you have a whiter skin or lighter skin, that does not stop us from being human.
Right.
And as the first video was saying, can you tell me which one of them was not born free?
Right.
Can you tell me which one of them does not deserve to be treated with respect?
Yeah.
And so on. So discrimination, let's talk about it. And I guess that will take us to the next point, because many things that we have seen, many atrocities, genocides, wars we have seen, they have come from that, maybe that subtitle, discrimination. I am such and such, you are such and such, so I have to discriminate and exterminate you.
Right.
That is something that I guess we would love to hear from you, and I don't know if you like the question or you don't, but...
I like the question.
You like it? Is it difficult? Do I want to change?
No, it's okay.
Well, but yeah, because we are here, talking and discussing about in detail and in depth about human rights, not only from the perspective of those 30 number 1, number 2 human rights.
But
we're talking about what is behind that, what makes that a necessity. I guess we'll do that then after, when we come back from our break.
Sounds good.
Manatsek Meziet, please stay with us. Back to the topic, and Miss Edison, we were talking about discrimination.
Right.
Not the discrimination that is kind of specified with the law here in the United States. I'm thinking, and I'm talking about discrimination with the deeper and the more comprehensive meaning of the word itself. Because as I was saying, and I think you agreed with me, if I am discriminating against you, and that is somehow giving myself, wrongfully of course, giving myself the right to do the wrong things because I am discriminating.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk about that, if you don't mind?
Well, when I teach in a class, and this program also specifically features the fact that this isn't about politics. Because discrimination, as you said, the laws of the, we're not talking politics. We're talking the basic idea that we're all human, we're all born free and equal with rights and dignity. You should treat your fellow human with dignity. That's really almost the basic principle. If what you're going to do, is that going to give dignity to that person or not?
Or maintain and protect his or her dignity as well.
So if it's not, if it's discriminatory, if it's going to reduce the respect and dignity that person has, you shouldn't do it. I mean, it's
simple as that, right?
Right. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. That's, the video that was shown was just the soccer and the soccer field, and it's really basic. We don't have, I mean, we should and we do need to talk about the Armenian genocides and the Holocaust and all these things, but really it comes down to the basic fact of if what I do to you is somehow going to reduce you, I shouldn't do it.
You shouldn't do it, but you do it, and maybe even without thinking that what you did might make the situation, might make things, might make our relationship, if there was a relationship, make the world, after all, a worse place.
Right.
Make everything worse. It won't help, I don't know, correcting something or creating a better environment or a better relationship. And that will, it will turn into a kind of a vicious cycle or a snowball. And, hatred and discrimination will generate hatred and discrimination. And at one point, someone has to stop it. Someone has to break that link or those links, that chain reaction. And I guess, again, education would be the most that matters. Right,
because we teach our kids that no matter what you see around you culturally, what's been done before, what the environment you're growing up in is these expectations, because we all grow up in some cultural expectations, maybe not even realizing that they're discriminatory until you actually take a look at it. So you have to, in education, just get them to open their eyes a little bit and look around and go, oh yeah, this thing that, my family or my best friend's been doing for years and years and years is actually hurting another person. I never even realized it. You get the well, I'm trying to protect myself. And there's a balance because human rights, you have human rights, but so does the person you're talking to. So you have to find that balance of how do you protect your own, how do you protect theirs. It's not easy. I'm not always. It doesn't always.
I would say I would agree with you to a certain extent. It's not easy at all, but it's not impossible either.
Right.
It's not difficult either, because I remember when I was a kid, in my school, when I was attending school, and in my family and culture, and they used to teach us something very basic. And actually 2 days ago I was talking about that same thing with my son. It was kind of a quote or something that says, if I remember it right, says, your freedom ends where or when the other people's freedom starts. Of course, that doesn't mean you don't have freedom.
Right.
You do have freedom, but that doesn't give you the right to occupy other people's space or take away other people's freedom under the right that you have, which is your freedom.
Right.
Now, freedom, let's say, First Amendment, freedom of speech. Can I go to a big event or to a movie theater where 400 or 500 people are watching a movie, and I say, there's a bomb, there's a bomb, there's a bomb. Just spreading that panic, and then it turns out that it was a prank.
Right.
I cannot do that. I will be penalized by law because that's not freedom of speech.
Right.
That's taking away the freedom of other
Others.
people and the joy of other people who were just sitting and watching a movie, or, I don't know, following an artist, a singer, whatever they are. So here is the thing. We got to understand that simple basic thing that I remember now that I learned, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago. Now you're calculating my age, I know. But at the same time, it kind of goes back to some simple basic principles. Discrimination, respecting the freedom, not taking away what they have born, what they were born with, that integrity, that innocence, that equality, that everything that comes with just being human.
Right.
Now, let's watch another video, please, and we'll be back and continue.
Sounds good.
Good morning. I'm here to read you your rights.
My what?
We are all free and equal. Don't discriminate. You have the right to life.
You have the right to life and to live in freedom and safety.
You have a right to education. You have a right to your own things.
You have the right to social security. You have the right to play.
You have the right to democracy. You have the right to asylum.
You have the right to take responsibility.
And no one
and nobody can take these rights and freedoms away from you.
Why are you doing this?
You have a right to know.
At the first glance, it feels like a shame when a child would remind me of what is responsibility or what is a human right. But if you think about it more deeply, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. In the sense of when those children and young adults, they're not even young adults yet, I think, the ones we saw in the video, they know and they are, transferring the message, spreading the word to everyone. And I believe when people live with those principles, definitely the world will be a better place. And I am not sure, it's either Bob Marley, I think it was Bob Marley, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. Now, that's another thing, right? You were talking earlier because about people who are thirsty for power.
Right.
And they are willing to, they are ready to exterminate, I don't know, people, cities, nations, genos, as we now talking a little more technical terminology, just because they want that power. And they sometimes, they just forget that power is not permanent.
Right.
No one had it forever. Otherwise, it wouldn't have come to you.
Right.
Right?
You took it for someone, and someone is going to
Would
take
you
it from
elaborate,
you.
please? Could you elaborate, please?
Well, I mean, you covered that pretty well, and we mentioned before just the idea of there is somebody who thinks that in order to get what he wants, he has to do this. And he's wrong, but in his mind, it's right.
Mm-hmm.
And could we have educated that particular person differently? I don't know. You know, some of those people are pretty, you say you elect your officials, or you usually expect them to be pretty normal. Not always the case. Not always. Sometimes some of those guys.
Normally you would assume they are normal, but yes,
every now and
not
then,
always.
Not so much. So in their mind, they are doing right. And no matter what education, I don't know what education you would have to do to change that. So it's more the educating of those people he's then talking to,
Mm-hmm.
so that they turn around and go, no, or whatever they need to do to not let it happen, to be able to stop it. So
here is what we just saw is one of my favorite rights, which is responsibility. And my father was a Holocaust survivor, and our tradition is to keep telling the story so it doesn't happen again. And
we'll come back right after the commercial break, and I will ask you, although I don't do that, to complete that idea.
Sure.
All right. Stay with us, please. Այսպես հարգելի բարեկամներ կվերադառնանք, and we're continuing our show tonight, and unfortunately I would say it is the last segment. And Hagit, you were talking about responsibility. After all you talked responsibility, Holocaust, and the responsibility of an Armenian genocide, and should I say more modern genocides? Is that a modern genocide? That's not a modern thing, but it's happening in the modern times, because those kind of things are, I don't know, the remainders of the jungle life or the inhuman past, whatever you want to describe it. However, as I was saying, so responsibility. When these kids are learning responsibility and learning to be responsible, and not only responsible to themselves, but responsible also for the well-being of others. Mm-hmm. Isn't that a wonderful thing?
Totally.
Would you please continue? You had started the thought.
Yeah, basically, responsibility for me touches the fact that you care for yourself and you care for another. And in the terms of the genocide and the Holocaust or any genocide, when the decision is to tell others so it doesn't happen again, here there's an opportunity to teach it, to tell all those rights to one, parents to children, teachers to children, so that it doesn't happen again, and it's a responsibility. It's
Mm-hmm.
totally, it needs to be happening in order for it to be
Well,
prevented.
I guess we both and our viewers also agree with you. However, we also have that high hope or the wish that the future elected officials will be the people who have been educated like this, not those people that you mentioned earlier.
Not the other ones, yeah.
Yeah, the not all of them people.
Right.
Because otherwise it will happen again, as it was happening from the beginning of, like we're talking about the last 100 years, right? From the beginning of the 20th century, all the way to the beginning of, and continuing actually, the 21st
there's more
century.
happening now.
It's still happening
It
now
hasn't
in
stopped.
different places, in different ways. And by the way, nobody tell me, please nobody tell me, because some people at some point try to, not to justify, but to explain, saying that, oh yeah, back in the days in 1915 and 1917, there was no email, there was no TV, there was no internet, there was no... But I think about 3,000 years ago, not in 1915, about 3,000 years ago, a soldier ran 42.198 kilometers, which is 26.2 miles. Now that's called a marathon,
right,
just to take the news of a battle saying we won.
Right.
There were ways. Henry Morgenthau, another Jewish personality, he was writing every day as the ambassador of the United States to the Ottoman Empire. He was writing every day. New York Times was writing every day, and people were reading it. But after all, some people chose to be on the sideline and watch. Because it's not only you not do it, be nice and don't do it. Stop the one who is doing it.
Yeah.
Will you please complete the idea?
Well, just the concept of an even simpler thing, the concept of bullying. Bullying in schools. If a person steps in to say something, 50% of the time bullying stops within 10 seconds. Just by somebody else.
That's true, in fact. That's true.
That's an actual government, stopbullying.gov or something. That's an actual, within 10 seconds, if somebody steps in.
Not all government statistics are reliable.
No, but this one is a good one.
Reliable ones. Yes.
Yes, this is a good one. But because it makes sense, and then and the other 50% of the time it takes a tiny bit longer. But if somebody steps in, the bullying stops. So based on that datum, anywhere in history, if somebody had stepped in, the bullying, the discrimination, the whatever,
the atrocity,
whatever human right atrocity it was, could have been stopped. So it's
minimizing the loss, let's say.
Right.
At least.
Yeah. So all of us, I end most of my classes with the power of 10, which is this concept of if I teach 10 people, they teach 10 people, they teach 10 people. It only takes 10 down to reach the entire population of Earth.
That's it.
That's it. And so that's where the responsibility comes in. You need to teach 10 people. You need to step in front of, and within 10 seconds, 50% of the time, maybe the other, it'll take 20 seconds, the bullying stops. It's, yeah.
Yet nobody took action back in the days. Nobody took action in the 40s.
Yeah.
Nobody took action in the 1915, 1916, 1917, 1918. Nobody took action. I remember someone. Also, I was taught this when I was, I think, a teenager. I'll try to just formulate it, but I'm not sure if I'm remembering it right. At one point, say they arrested and put into concentration camps all the, I don't know, let's say the Protestants, and nobody said nothing. And after that, they arrested and put in concentration camps, such and such, let's say other.
Right.
Nobody said nothing. They at the end, and there was no one left to say something.
Right, and then they came for
because you did not stop them at one point.
Right.
When you say, well, this is being done to, I don't know, to the white people, and I am not white, okay?
Right.
You don't know when your turn will come.
Right.
Or it's being done to black people, or it's being done to Jewish people, or it's being done to Christian people, or it's being done to Armenians or Greeks or whatever.
Right.
Oh, it's not my people, but you don't know when your turn could come if you do not stop that.
Right.
Can we watch a video?
Yes, please.
Let's do
Let's do it.
We're all born free and equal.
Don't discriminate. These are your human rights. There are 30 of them. They belong to you. You don't have to buy them, or apply for them, or ask permission to have them. They're just yours. No matter who you are, where you're from, how old you are, or anything else. It's just that simple. Now, some people may try to ignore your rights, or violate them, or pretend they don't exist. But they can't change the fact that they're yours. Human right number 30. No one can take away your human rights. What are human rights? Find out at youthforhumanrights.org.
Impressive. We're
That's
back.
great.
We have less than a minute. I think we have to kind of wrap it up. I wouldn't say put a period, because this is a topic that can go on and on and on. How do you describe the way the students, the youngsters, the youth that you teach, the way they respond, the way they perceive, the way they react, the way they hear those things?
there's always a group of them that are amazed, and I get, why has nobody told this to me before? This is amazing. There's a group that I don't reach in every class, but there's a larger group that I do reach who then want to do something.
Fine. Why do you think you can't reach that group?
Well, it's anything from they maybe already have a preconceived idea that I don't know what the preconceived idea is, so I can't directly address it. Usually I only get an hour, and so there's only so much I can cover. So there's that barrier. But
that's dangerous.
It is.
Let's admit.
And
that preconceived idea.
That preconceived.
That's exactly what you're trying to prevent and to correct, right?
Right, and that's to go back again, and go back again, and go back again. So it isn't just a one time. You can't just talk about it once. You need to talk about it more than once. And
I see.
We talk about the website, and we talk about where they can find out more and that kind of stuff as well.
Well, if you talk to them about that, why don't you talk to us about that as well?
So the website youthforhumanrights.org has all of our materials where you can get everything for free. You can get our educator kit, you can get the booklets. We have these little booklets with the, the simplified version
human rights
of the human rights. You can order everything off the website for free. It'll get shipped to you. Anybody can teach it. I've had moms of 6-year-olds decide to teach it.
No hidden fees, no nothing, right?
Nothing. I mean, every now and then we may like to hear how great it went, but that's it.
That's still
Let
free.
us know that it went well. That's our exchange.
I see. All right. As I said, we could talk about this for hours. Hopefully, this is not going to be the orphan time, the only one time.
Sounds good.
However, to start with, human rights, youth human rights.
Youth for Human Rights.
Youthforhumanrights.org. That's what everyone can start. And thank you very much. Join me to thank our ladies tonight. They were Andromeda, Edison, the president, the California chapter president of YHRI, and one of the freedom singers, Hagit, Raviv-Ron. Thank you very much. Is Cezi Harkeli Paragamner ինչպես միշտ։ Բարին ցեզ։
What are human rights? Find out at youthforhumanrights.org.